question gets immediately banned.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
One surprise me, you power tripping fuck.
Wow.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Oh, hello, Greece.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
You're gonna help me mute all the people here because they newly joined once.
I will not be stripped of my rights.
I know you, Dave.
Who won't be stripped of their rights?
What if I feel the urge to kind of mic spam something?
There we go. He should be able to rejoin.
Well,
Question
I mean,
gets
you're
immediately
Irish,
banned.
so...
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Homosexual.
One surprise me, you power tripping fuck.
Nothing.
Wow.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Oh, hello, Greece.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
You're gonna help me mute
rejoin.
all the people here because they newly joined once. Can you
I
fix
will
the
not be
rules?
stripped of my
I'll do it.
rights.
I know you, Dave.
It's fine, Bamboo. Hang on. Everyone.
Why can't he join the rank? Like,
Let's see. Let's see.
Well,
Question
I mean...
gets- That one is, but this one isn't. Why isn't this one done? Do that. Hit that button and some permissions.
There's not many people here.
does Project not have registered? Oh, he does.
He does, but somebody had changed all the permissions around. There we go. And you and you and you and you.
Oh.
Changes, and I should now. Yes, is he server muted or is he just unserver mute? Hello?
Hello?
A little bit anticlimactic. Right. Announcements.
Oh, gee, thanks, Nintendo. I love getting one shot.
Do you have a Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, boy, I just got it like 2 days ago.
To tag 2,200 plus people. Are you sure?
Wait, what? No, we don't have that many people in this Discord.
Yeah, we do.
2,200.
Over 200.
Oh, you said fuck off. 2,200.
124. There we go. We got at least one person in. I'm also going to spam message Faulty.
You might want to mute registered people.
A disappointment. It's quite hard to mute that.
Oh, okay.
Wait, who?
That was Lewings. I don't know how he managed to talk.
I don't know. Okay, people are coming in here with server mute on, so we'll call that mission accomplished. And
Yeah, but like I don't know how Lewings was able to talk.
right. So if I go and find the thread.
The main talking points are in the pinned messages and the first messages at the top.
But that implies that I read.
But there is also a staff document that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to find because I wrote stuff on it.
Well, I'll send you it, you bastard. I mean,
Fine, I've got it open. I've got it open. It's fine.
Vlood, I'll send it to you too because you're apparently here from work instead of
Hopefully
right?
doing his job. Nice meme.
I mean, pretending to do my job. Thanks.
How does Liv have a talking like not server mute? What the hell?
Because I took it off in case they need to talk because we talk about dev stuff later.
Yeah, but we can unmute them then.
Yeah. Right. Just a quick question while we're here. What makes a taco a taco?
That's been discussed.
Has been discussed, but not by
we need community input now.
It's still offline. Get everyone in here.
Hello.
So
Hello,
we've got
Dicky.
we've got an Apollo, we've got a Bamboo, we've got. Hey, did I just see Falstein? Must be at the end.
Okay, so Skin Power is saying taco seasoning makes it taco, not a tortilla.
That's actually a good point. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna get a bottle of vodka. I'm gonna need it by the end of this.
What?
That's a... Steve is sorting his cup of tea out and he'll be here shortly. I put a spam tag in the team Discord so everyone who has forgotten to turn up is going to turn up. So, yeah, good morning and welcome to the September 2019 community meeting hosted by myself, Bambo. Overdude, but he's probably not going to say anything because he's used to shut up because I know it's the afternoon. And whoever else is here who's going to talk, so probably nobody because they can't get a word over me.
Just a reminder that before the whole thing starts, you can submit your questions through this document.
Oh, I'm going to open that one as well, just so I've got it in my fourth monitor. That's fine. Close. I don't need to know what makes attack or attack code on the meeting. Open that on there. Right, cool. So, starting off with a monthly review, what have we done since the last meeting? Perhaps Overdude would like to take this question. That's what I thought. So, we've been taking more feedback from the community through the threads that have been posted in community feedback, discussions, announcements. Am I a little bit quiet? I think I might be cutting off. Right, if I just do that, that should stop it from cutting out. And a couple of implementations, new systems being made relatively quickly now that we've got staff members back with us who weren't as active before. Changes and prototypes being discussed and some that are in the works, which are quite cool, hopefully, maybe. Internal discussions being made as a result of all the feedback that people gave us last week. Was it last month, Bambo? The last one?
I think it was like 2 months ago.
A month, 2 months ago, however it is. But yeah, that's the thing that's happened. And of course, as some people might know, because some people here are in it, the community feedback group, essentially to try and get a more direct line feedback from the community into the team. I'll say I can field questions now to do with that directly, or I can go through the list, whatever's easier for people.
I think just going through the list
Going through
would
the list,
be
yeah, because no one's sending me anything really. Okay, so starting off with staff, perhaps Overdude would like to go through this topic, seeing as he's HR. But I thought, okay, what's going on with staff?
Don't even give me a second to look at the fucking.
Going on
give
with
you a
staff
second
activity?
technically.
What's going on with staff activity among the community? That's the question for HR. Overdude.
Among the community, question mark? Or just what's going on with staff activity? Well, okay.
Forgive me, staff are in the community, so therefore among the community is technically correct. What's happening with staff activity, Overdude?
I mean,
Absolutely nothing. Wonderful. Next
we got a new HR member who should have been here, But anyway, hopefully we're gonna get stuff. I mean, obviously, no promises as usual. I don't want to break my own promises, but hopefully, with that, we can more strides in our renewed motivation. Sort out the inactivity problem a bit. As usual, we're still kind of looking for new promotions, etc. Everything's still going in that front.
Thoughts about doing an unban wave for bans older. So unban wave, it went for a vote and it got voted down. Good morning,
Yeah.
everybody.
And I was all for it, but unfortunately, as you can see, votes are like yikes.
I will go and find some of the comments if I can archive for a second. I can't find it. Did it not get archived yet? Was it not in the admin range? Was it somewhere else?
And the other one, it's the
Was it
puny
not?
one. Yeah.
I can't. If somebody can find, oh no, hang on, is that it there?
I'll find it for you. You
that would be wonderful. Hello, everyone who's just joined us. We can
look at one of the messages that threads that Overload posted, because there aren't many. Cough.
I thought it was Tamar who posted it.
No, it was Overload. No, wait.
You can do that, Sowers. Hang on. Those who have just joined us, we're currently on this question here. I can pin that as well, can't I? Yeah, there we go. So yeah, essentially. Oh, thank you very much, Bambo.
There's also that one.
I'm probably going to need. Go on that screen. Essentially, what the main things coming back is it might look a bit desperate, and that generally the server population was coming back anyway, so staff as a whole decided it wasn't, even though even with whatever positives there are, or okay. Why is Gun running in that? Piece of bread from Domino's is absolutely amazing. I would recommend. Next question. Improvements in transparency. I've got to undo this one. In transparency, Overload would probably be the best person to talk about this.
In transparency, it's a really broad topic. Finding meaningful ways to improve transparency that are not just transparency for the sake of transparency for no reason at all is not that easy to do. There have been quite a few suggestions on that front, if I recall correctly. A lot of them did turn out to be either things that really don't serve a particular purpose, I would say. Otherwise, we have to be careful regarding whether making something more transparent would negatively impact another area of staff enforcement or topics, because a few things are a bit sensitive and we need to consider, do risk assessment, etc. But we know that more transparency is something that the community wants, but we need time to consider the possible options and come up with meaningful solutions to that problem.
So it's also a thing where it has been brought up internally, where the vote HR for the last, the newest HR, at least 2 different candidates put transparency as one of their key issues. It's fair to say that it is also not just by the community, but also internally. And Frosty is still not here. Alright. So no C. Next is going to be enforcement of rules.
About the transparency, like, to me, it's more of a question of what the community would like to know, actually.
Yes,
That is actually a
it's
valid.
something for more detailed input further down to for somebody to put up after this meeting, perhaps.
Find out what is actually wanted and then consider what of that is feasible and how it could be implemented best. That'd be a pretty decent way forward.
For development, Eddie, there's actually a lot that's been done on that front since a couple of years ago. Speaking of development, hello, Falsty. That we've done to try and increase transparency. The dev blog to explain things that we do and why we do them. These meetings are actually, there's a lot more to go in depth about later. I've written in an entire thing. We're on development, Gungranny, because we've just had to jump back to it because transparency was the last thing. So
just to answer that question a bit more, the whole community input group was partly brought about because we want more transparency there, and also so we've got a group to rapidly bounce ideas off. So while it's technically a confidential group, I don't really care if things get leaked to the wider community, and there's transparency through there as well.
King is okay, Falsty 2K19. Rule enforcement. Again, there was a vote internally about this where staff decided the way the rules are enforced wasn't an issue, and so there would be no change. Colander. Again, it might be, I don't know, it might be something where specific changes that people want.
I would like to ask if people have suggestions regarding more specific rule changes, that they bring them forward more specifically and more laid out. And in that case, it can be kind of voted on in that way, because broadly there were some votes done, such as like, hey, do we want to change the rules to guidelines, as was suggested before? The vote was no. We don't want that at this moment. Do we want I don't know, what was it? Do we want to be more standardized exactly with punishment for rule violation? Once again, the vote was no. But if you have any more specific suggestions for rules that we can discuss, it would be appreciated if you would then post it as a suggestion, or maybe just send it in to me or whoever, so I can bring it up.
If players say rule enforcement is a problem, those are the ones who are on the receiving end of those enforcements. What's the point if the admins just say, no, it's not an issue, overload?
But that's kind of how the system works, so I don't know what to say.
I think in a bit, Foster will touch on something that actually takes that into like. So we're technically not finished on the enforcement.
Yeah, if you've got questions that aren't directly related to what's happening now, can we please stick them on that list so we don't lose them? Following. No. There was a one about why I make change logs. For the rule should be enforced as is now. If you feel you agree, that's too harsh. Why don't people make unban requests? Well, I can answer that partially. They're reviewed by the same staff member who issued the ban, generally aren't overturned unless you either kiss their ass or it's such a blatant mistake that other staff members start to comment on it.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a relic from the FL days as well. You know, that was just how it was done. The same staff member would respond to the unban request. Therefore, you're not going to really get any second opinion unless it's something pretty severe. I don't play anymore because I don't have time, so it would have to be up to other admins to review if this is a good idea or not. But just saying from what I've seen internally over the years, it could be a very good idea to enforce that another staff member has to review. I wouldn't be against that.
It's a valid thing to consider, but you need to realize that wink wink actually, like, if this is as intended, if there is actually a misstep by the staff member, they do get called out and the ban does get overturned. Most of the time when you see like the unban request being made and it being denied because it's the same staff member, it's probably because it should have been denied anyway, because technically the unban request is only for A, if it's permanent, so you have no other choice but to appeal it, or B, if the unban was the ban itself was a blatant mistake, and if it is a blatant mistake, then it's going to get called out and overturned anyway. So the result usually is going to be the same regardless of which staff member reviews it.
Liv, probably the best thing to do is PM that to Overload or put a suggestion on the forums again so we don't lose it.
Way, probably what could be done is to have another staff member being required to close the case, so the original staff member can decide whether or not it's approved or denied, and somebody else needs to sign off on that. If you were to move it entirely to another staff member, it would take a long time probably for that particular staff member to get the full context of the situation.
We do it for moderators.
Too bad of an idea.
It's not bad, but you could just say, "Oh, look, this staff member just has their go-to other staff member who's their friend, who just does whatever the first staff member comments on the post." Like, that's not gonna make much of a difference.
15.
I mean, if you're just gonna comment it like that.
15 seconds, just so everyone knows.
Everything for rules enforcement that I've got written down. Have a quick check.
Yeah, again, you'll have a chance to bring up rules again later on once I raise another topic.
Yeah, there is.
So
Actually,
it would make sense to cover that again later once you've got, you know, the new information too.
We'll come back to that question afterwards.
Oh, there was a chat this whole time. I didn't even know. Well, okay. Probably should be keeping up with that.
Down. So we can put those out. What's his face? Sowers is streaming this, so it will also be recorded. We need a more effective way of doing it. Yeah.
This is more organized than other meetings because we have and also talking points.
We could just there should be like some sort of formatting you should follow. Question, like, I don't know, making it all bold or something.
Talk, but
doing that.
I mean, perhaps people can just stop talking if they're not asking questions for a while. Bit of self-discipline would solve everything.
Should probably help. Why not make an off-topic or keep off-topic in off-topic? Well, you should be keeping off-topic in off-topic anyway. But yeah. Cares about, please keep it in general. If you've got stuff that's actually relevant that we need to bring up or respond to, then yeah, if we can keep it in here. How about that? He is somewhere, Nem, but I'm not writing a bot in 2 seconds flat. You check the pins. There's a Google Doc. Can you put that on there, please? Thanks. Soft punishments. So that would be softer punishments, or is that something else? I can't remember.
Elaborate on that.
I can't. There was another vote.
Thing where you would warn people first every time or
Invisible.
something.
No, I think invisible warnings that only show up for staff or something.
If it was denied by vote, then it's
Well, was it even?
Like
I don't.
overload.
I feel like that was in like somewhere, but it wasn't voted on. I'm not sure. I don't remember that thing being voted on.
Or not discussed yet.
It's certainly not been approved.
it's the standardized punishments part.
It's not. No. Standardized is not softer. Those are not the same things.
It might also be the cap punishments.
I brought that up without like
Voting it.
considering the whatever softer punishment thing is. That was just my own angle in regards to the other thing I suggested.
Not internally brought up.
The
Okay.
way it's been talked about in community input or something like that. Yeah, it's been brought up somewhere. Check if it's not been brought up already. It's either been denied or needs to be brought up. Soft punishments. I haven't updated that, right?
Put it up, so I'm just gonna leak my own the thing I brought up. Basically, I discussed the possibility of removing probation and setting a hard cap on punishments, but
that got denied as well.
that got denied. Yeah, probation thing was pretty close to being approved, but not quite.
Guidelines were also denied.
Guidelines were denied. I already mentioned that.
Right, that's everything in the staff. Oh, that was why was it? Not a fucking clue. Let me go and find.
No idea. Just didn't get the votes. Probably. Let me just make a, how do you say?
There was somebody who
Assumption. It's because quote unquote, can we change rules to guidelines is really vague and a really huge undertaking, and unless we have people who actually want to give like a very thorough like overview of what exactly would change and why it would have to be changed, it wouldn't really just happen, really.
I know somebody voted plus support and then put minus support in the poll.
I just want to state the question that Noodle Salad is putting in the thing is already asked in 11, so you don't have to ask it again.
Okay, cool. We just
Roleplay related rules. Hold on, I recall something like that. Yeah, I mean that part.
Yeah, there's a lot of different questions on the same thing coming in at once. But what I will say is, rules and whether you have rules or guidelines, how hard soft you punish, that's being taken a bit more seriously now by the staff team, because we're really encouraging that in the new community input group we've got. Now, much encouraging players to come in there and be very mindful of how the admin team is run and any problems there. Just because we need to hear about it, and it's clear there are problems. We wouldn't be in a low player count situation if we didn't have problems.
there's pressure from both above and below to get things sorted out.
Gun Granny, doing that opens up to some potential issues like, yeah, exactly what Doc said. Bias! This staff member is allowing their friends to break all the rules, but then they punish everyone else who does it.
liked a meeting when you had a raid.
Yeah.
I wasn't the one who shouted advice.
Ban ID 9128. Oh, that one. Yeah, okay.
Moving on.
Yeah.
The next topic from self-punishment is guidelines.
Oh, community advisement. We've already done guidelines.
Didn't you say done?
We did say done. That was what we just did. General community advisor role.
Isn't that just a teacher? Lol.
No.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Some notes on here. I'm going to have to full screen this because I think there were comments as well that I need to read unless they got deleted already.
They were resolved.
They were resolved, okay. So, to try, because it's a way of trying to get feedback in from the community, including ones that are critical or have different views from the rest of the team, but still having a limit to people because, well, being easy to get in if we had like the 20 or 30 people we've got in here right now, and as we saw in the chat earlier, it gets very, very difficult very, very quickly. So that's just a quick overview on it. What's happening with the advisor role? It's more people are being brought in, but there was an issue with how votes were being handled because, yeah, there was a bit of an issue that was kicked up internally about it, which I don't think I can go into.
It's not.
That's
Not in detail, anyway.
Yeah, okay, so essentially there was a bit of confusion between the guidelines which said that there's going to be votes for whoever, and then the people in charge just added people without considering the rest of the team. So a bit of a thing that's back on track now, getting a lot of useful input from the people who are in that group. I'm sure they can agree.
I mean, that group so far has been fantastic. Lots of new development ideas, lots of new, quite wider ideas, and it's had, I wouldn't say immediate, but quite a short-term effect. Various development tracks are already following on as results of that meeting. We've got some projects in the works as a result of that immediate meeting. And, well, I won't go too much into what the actual issue Doc was discussing was, just the end result was kind of that, unless you're being overly aggressive or just a general dick to everybody, you're more than welcome to join, especially if you've got big controversial opinions, you've got to hear them.
So it was on hold when we wrote this document the first time. It's not anymore, so it's just yeah, getting back on its feet after the bit of a slip up there. Well, Gungranny, you saw how absolutely nutty this chat got within 5 seconds, yeah?
To go further on that, the issues we tend to have if you just speak to absolutely everybody is, one, we get bullshit like this where it's just too confusing, there's too much going on, things climb out of scope very quickly, it's impossible to work with. And if you have a smaller group, it's really easy for the development team to just bounce ideas back off people quickly. And that doesn't work with a wider community group because then you have people who come in temporarily, leave quickly, you have people who aren't aware of what's going on because there's so much going on. It doesn't work and it's not viable to support development. And you see that problem, we've seen that problem for years by just, looking at the suggestion forms. Lots of good stuff there, but there's no real organization between the people giving suggestions, and it's very difficult to get quick immediate feedback. That's why this group has been, really a blessing in how it's been done.
That's something that we've been pushing forward on doing and trying to do, so they actually know what's going on and can give their feedback.
just for, feedback at a high level as well. It's there to sort out the small little issues of, the admin team. So, how much should this item cost? What about this UI look? Just small dev things that are really not worth posting a whole thread or post for, but it's very much worth just speaking to one or two people quickly about.
Let me just quickly add a new thing in here. I'll go over that in development and actually go over, because some people know, some people don't, what the actual process for having a development project start to finish, and I'll explain that later. User.
You're absolutely right there. We've got way too many suggestions. There's a lot of good ideas, but if we just, go through the list in order and implement them, we'll end up with a fucking mess of a game mode where there's no real cohesion or links between ideas. And it's just going to be really dangerous, but not good. Just massive, shallow, nothing makes sense, nothing links. It's better to, look at the library of ideas and then come up with a cohesive development plan. And that's partly why we put so much effort into making and releasing Mesca, because it's one kind of system that lets us link lots of different gameplay elements, both passive and aggressive. And if we can make these systems deeper and tie them in, then we have more cohesion within the game mode.
But NEM, or RuneScape, or Morpega, they're all the same thing. Not meant to be catching 300,000 fish in a day. It's something that gives you long-term progression over multiple elements.
To come back to and something to actually do.
A lot of work into actually scaling the levels. Firstly, it's incomplete. We've only got 1 to 50 right now of actual feasible bonuses. 1 to 100, there'll be various membership items there, there'll be other unlocks there, links to crafting and so forth. And also, you're not meant to be able to easily get max level. The vast majority of players should not be maxing any skill. That's stupid. If you have different skill requirements and only a few players with a high level skill, it encourages more teamwork and, again, working together. No one player should be maxing out every skill unless you're willing to sink thousands of hours in. The key part of your sentence there is I don't code. So possibly maybe listen to those of us who are saying it does take time and we have to carefully, sculpt this stuff, plan it out, put it together. If we were all unemployed and working, 24/7, then yes, we could have things out very quickly. That's not the case. Most of our experienced devs have uni, work, or other commitments. And, we have to take our time with this. That's partly why we have the community input group, so we have help planning. I can hopefully make some progress with this. Right now we have mainly crafting and medical skills in the work, but there are other ones that will come after that.
Code Quacker.
Posty, I've sent talking points to you. It's a internal one.
Alright, Arnie, what plebs? Gray, put unique in quote marks. probably the best part of 6 to 12 months, I'd say, trying to get various elements updated and easier to use people. But we're still nowhere near having a standardized API, hooks for everything, or just issues that are long-standing because it's had 12 years of patchwork development put on top of it, and never a consideration to long-term progression or long-term improvements. He's going to get a smack in the head. What is the other community does that makes it obviously more appealing than LL? I don't know if it is obviously more appealing because there's obviously people here that aren't there. They all have their negatives. There's not much more I can say about that, is there?
So I'm not sure if we actually covered this in the release thread or not, but one of the reasons we only released one reasonably simple module at the start is because we have to, test everything works properly. It's not just a simple, plus 10 experience every fish. It's quite a complex backend system with support for lots of different skills, metrics, achievements, as in the name. We had to test it was working. We need to be able to see how quickly people gain skills, whether it matches up to our expectations, and so forth. If we released everything at once, because it's too complex a scope. But also we wouldn't have that initial data we needed, and so then we'd have to rebalance down the line, and that would again fuck everything up.
Bad words. You don't have kids, Uncle. But yeah, essentially, it's a lot of work to try and get even the core and one skill released. In a massive overhaul, that was adding hooks and new rods and some new fish. Plus, the actual core took years. When we had a fully staffed dev team as well.
That's quite a lot. It's very complex, took a long time to do, but it's now finished. And now that it's finished, it's really easy to hook into, easy to hook into a lot of other systems. But again, it still needs planning, it still needs to be done in a sensible way. You still have to improve the other systems as well. It's not very simple stuff, especially when we're still trying to deal with a huge technical debt of just really bad unplanned coding over the years, especially from before the LL days where it was all volunteer work, devs were never paid, and so the game mode is a mess, frankly.
I think that's the best explanation we can give you at the moment. And then anyone else who had the same. Next is going to be what's being done to make people want to come back or come to LimeLight. I think Amber is probably the best person to answer this.
Also, development-wise, concerning you, I can answer the media-wise.
Yeah, I'd say that there are two tags things that you could probably
the development-wise part.
So one of the main things that we're looking at, but obviously it has to be planned well because we've done it before and it's failed, is expanding into different games or game modes. Things like Space Station 13, Prop Hunt, TTT, Murder, things like that. Quick, easy game modes. They don't require a lot of administration. They don't require huge amounts of development time. Broadening the scope to bring more people in, because City RP is quite a tight scope with maybe 3 already, with Fearless and ourselves. Like people who might be more willing to play might starting off with different something else to bring them into the community itself. If they or TTT or Death Run or whatever they play, it doesn't matter. They're in LimeLight. They're members of the LimeLight community. It is they play. We may have started off as a City RP community, but not like a City RP community. But there's also always has been from the CS:GO competitions, Rocket League we've had before.
We technically didn't have a Rocket League competition because it was never done. Sadly. It's called LimeLight Gaming and not my LimeLight City RP. So yeah.
See, I want a Siege thing until I play a Siege thing, then I never want a goddamn Siege thing again. Oh yeah, there was the Left 4 Dead 2 one as well. There's a Siege one that Sal was trying a couple of months ago, and I think he wants to do another one.
We are going to have competitions done. We are planning on things to have competitions done, but we're trying to get a backhand system ready that we can host competitions better and like keep track of teams, etc. That allows us to be more of a gaming community and more of a competition than we are currently because we don't have the systems to host competitions better. If that makes sense.
So a couple of good questions there from Apex. Do you think, in regards to broadening the scope of LimeLight, it's best to start with a fresh start on how we market it to players? Yeah, I think that's really worth looking into and considering. There were some thoughts of that previously in the business team back when we had Vold and Jonah, and we're just looking at advertisements, stuff like that. I think went a bit over the head of a lot of people, fairly high level. Sit down with the community and refine what is it people actually want to play City RP for. Why do those people choose our version of City RP and not competitors? Anything we need to change? The more low-level things that reach our players immediately rather than just looking straight towards advertisement. That could be something interesting. Minigame server is quite an interesting idea. I'd be really happy to look into that. Things like Doc was just saying, so various other game modes and expansions, TTT, different, whatever, those would really have to be tied with the main game mode anyway, otherwise they're just another generic TTT server, for example. So if we can build links between them, it's well worth spending time and money on, I think.
And you've managed to answer. Wonderful.
That I'd like to bring up is the YouTube channel. We don't actually have many videos published. Kinda makes it to upload stuff because we don't have any. So, but what we can do is we can have a reward system where people submit videos, and then we can reward them if uploaded to YouTube. Also giving credit. That I want to internally more implementation. For state the question.
Sorry, which question? Gun grannies or a different one? Yeah, I mean, Doc's mentioning some kind of technical issue right now, which is fair enough. Ignoring the technical side, I think it's a good idea. Why not?
Also be a copyright issue if we like host or stream Netflix, given that we are registered as a business.
I'm not sure if that works.
Yeah, it's something to have a little look into. It may end up not being a problem because technically everyone's streaming it directly. And if we're using a source, like, again, what Granny is saying, it's such a minor issue that I don't think we need to worry too much. And again, it may not be, big official movies for streaming. You know, just put the big LED show on and, let the kids learn something about drugs.
Next question is going to be, what are we doing for the US player base? Yeah, we're a funeral for the dead US server.
Closing, essentially. When we started this several months, even if there are very low amounts of players, to give it another go. The idea being that the previous time we tried, it started well, and then there were problems with the map and the workshop owner changing the map, I think, for their incompatibilities, and a slow dev response, and so it died. So some people said, hey, it could really work. Just have a consistent US server, give it time. We gave it time, and we looked at how much it was costing, and we did stick with the amount of months we agreed on, but it's clearly not working. So we may as well push that dev budget towards something else.
And yeah, that's pretty much the only thing we had there. Will we expect the monthly newsletters to return at any time soon or not? Probably not.
I mean, the system randomly broke. Like, it worked 1 month and then
break the
a
next
month it didn't.
Yeah.
We had no conceivable way of like foreseeing if it broke or not before it was actually published, which made an issue.
It would work when it was published and then randomly stop working after it was published. Yeah, it was but it would be taking a lot of work to actually fix it. And because the system, what it does, when it breaks, it's very noticeable to the community. Yeah. One where it needs to be very carefully looked at and make sure it's worked and done a lot better if we do it again. Yes, those are much more likely to return. For those of you who don't know, you can actually look up our company filings on Companies House, and so you get an idea of what's going on there. We're looking to explain where our expenditure goes.
Yeah, I think it's something we've wanted to do for a while and put my effort into it. It's just preparing them does take up a lot of time, and because it's business related, it's normally me or someone else that has to spend a fair bit of time doing this and getting the information. And unfortunately, the people who have access to this are also the ones who have other things to do. But I'll, delegation makes my life much easier. It can be lazy, so I'll see if I can pass that on to, see if I can collate the data and get maybe media to help with this. I think this time I need to speak with the devs first to see if they're comfortable with it. But it would be good to show in a lot more detail than the past on what we spend the budget on. So looking at individual updates where possible, which aren't always consistent, but it's a good idea of what we're spending our money on, how much things cost, how much effort has gone into fixing the game modes, technical debt, and so forth. But again, this isn't a promise because I have to clear it with each individual developer first. It's not fair for me to just say how much they've earned.
Hop in for a second here. Some of the things that Fossey's talking about, technical debt and things like that, we'll be explaining in a bit because there is a thing of explaining actually what's going on, what these terms mean.
Yep, that would be great, and that'll come very soon. Another good question from Apex, asking that he assumes we have tight times for LimeLight. What areas can we expect to feel the pinch in? Not too many, actually. We have tight times in terms of player base, but when you actually look at how much we're earning month on month, even with a reduced player base, we're still actually earning a decent amount. It is true that our funds are dropping. That's mainly been due to increased expenditure on development. We pay devs a fair bit more than we used to. So you do earn a reasonable amount for doing a project. We are probably going to have to tighten down a little bit on unauthorized dev projects, which is where dev has idea, dev does idea, it's good. This is great, but we just need to make sure they're showing content for the players when this happens, because again, a lot of the work has just gone into bug fixing and so forth.
Some of the more complex things are things that players don't see.
So I just want to state there's a grammar Nazi under Google Docs questions that keeps fixing other people's grammar mistakes. That's just beautiful.
Young hero, keep doing your good work.
Yeah, can we not have people writing random shit on the doc? Thank you very, very much. We're down into development now.
Yeah, just one last. Not the one on kidnapping the internet, that's already in the works, but do we plan to substitute this for more affordable options like contributors? We try to. We do like to keep a good contributor team going. There is actually also another smaller budget to support the contrib team once they've become experienced. The main problem is experienced. It can be hard as a new contributor to immediately jump onto more complex projects. Because of issues in the past, we do have to be a little bit careful of how much of the code we immediately release to them. Though we try to be a bit more trusting with that now. We're not guarding, international secrets, just a kind of shitty game mode. We have put in a fair bit of effort over the past year and a half, I think, mainly thanks to Doc, this documentation for contributors. So if you have, some programming skill and are familiar with GLUA, and if more importantly, you have good programming skills so that you know to read documentation, you should be able to jump in really quickly compared to in the past.
About development, I think contribs is that people always find negative stuff to complain about updates that kind of demoralizes contribs.
Yeah, we've had that in the past. We've had that more recently as well, where more than possible that you'll release an update and the first 5-10 people are all finding the only negative things to say about it, even if it's generally an alright update. People find any excuse to nitpick, don't they?
Those of us who are still here developing, we've all developed, quite thick skin to deal with this. But it is because it does still contribute to developer burnout. Why the hell should I, spend a huge amount of time for very little pay developing something when it's going to be torn to shreds? All of us who are still here, we do keep trying to do this, but it is true that we have lost some contributors because of this before. It's very noticeable. It's sad when it happens. Thankfully, most people, especially those here involved in the community, aren't like this. And, it's been great to see the community input group and those of you here joining the meeting being so supportive and, giving us your ideas. And yeah, what Granny Granny said is right. Critical feedback is fantastic, even if negative. Being a dick doesn't fly.
For example, we had somebody comment on a prototype 4 months out of date and had been completely redone. And the old prototype saying, "Oh, it looks like we just stole this." Completely different, and we actually ended up losing a developer for that. He bothered to, keep themselves updated and just decided to be hyper negative and hypercritical. about their feedback. Okay, what are we on? Development. Explaining the so I've seen a couple of inside the team and out don't really seem to understand how the dev team works and how we process, how we push things through. So generally we start with suggestions. They go through, they get voted by the community, they go through to staff review. In staff review, they're voted on by developers and administrators for glaring issues, technical competence, stuff like that. They might be reviewed by devs before that, because some things are just completely impossible. If it's a duplicate, it might get closed, it might not. It depends if we see the duplicate or not. Something small, it's either just approved. At the moment, if it's small, it might just be done. And that's a lot of the smaller updates that we push out. It might into planning for a larger update, into like the community input or one of our internal working groups. So things like the rep overhaul went through to an internal group, decisions were made, it was voted on again, and then it was implemented. Or so yeah. Yes, again, this is answering a question that earlier. We can't generally just put out ideas that people give us and just straight up put them in, because we've had a lot of time in the questions. We'll come to that in a bit. Administrators have chewed out development for implementing things that weren't suggestions, complaining that we're trying to turn CityRP into our personal playground. Trying to cover ourselves from that, keep to what the community have said that they want, and try and keep us as accountable as we can.
Has been really helpful here again, so props to everyone who's joined that. And if you haven't and you've got stuff to say, whether good or incredibly critical, you're more than welcome to apply and join. That would be fantastic. Something to add before Doc continues in regards to how we plan and sort updates. Meska is one example of not listening immediately just to what the suggestions are telling us, but thinking, okay, we've got a lot of different things here, it's fairly unorganized. How can we kind of merge this all into one, combined update? Or how can we build one update that facilitates all of the other things? And it's a ladder we've done there. We put time and effort into making one really big update, mainly back end, that facilitates lots of other suggestions and updates in the future. Even now, we're still trying to come up with a more cohesive game mode plan, which we'd like to pull as much as we can from suggestions onto it, but we might not necessarily do so, just depending on how well they link. Back to you, Doc.
So it might be that every project needs to be approved, or things like that. Bugs, it's slightly different. We get free reign to fix bugs, whether that be removing the feature, be fixing a specific bug, whether it be temporarily disabling something. It's pretty loosey-goosey, for want of a better term, for those for bugs. And Christ knows that there's a lot of. That's just a quick overview there on that's just a quick overview there on how suggestion process and how we end up. Okay, so that's done. Development. What have we done in development since the last meeting? Well, we've had these, which both Liv and Bambo and Welker, other people who numerous other people, so many that I can't name them, have put hours and hours and hours into getting accessories finished and working and live. I saw, I hope Bambo doesn't mind me saying this, it was something like 60 hours, something in total.
Per person, I think. I think I put over 70 hours because I also redid the beards. Added,
So
yeah.
60, 70 hours to get that working.
I joined in quickly for one or two things to help, bug fixing and so forth, which involved me working with, Bambo and others who may have been newer to the team or weren't very familiar with coding. The dedication and willingness I saw to learning and helping to put out this update was fantastic. It was a really great job done by everybody.
So we've also had the suits overhaul as well. Again, Bambo has done a lot of work into that. Yeah. Those are just some nice cosmetic things there that benefit from, which is quite nice. The suits overhaul, there's now like 5 times as many suits. Yeah, it's on the forums. You can have a look about it there. Falsty, have you got the document open?
Internal one, yeah.
This one's for you, I think.
That we've had from the community input group. And it is because lots of people in there are very critical about how we apply rules, how many rules we have, how strict punishments are, and so forth. It's really been identified as probably one of the biggest reasons we've been struggling recently. Not the only one, but I think a lot of people can probably agree we have a lot of work to do on rules. With this, one idea that we used to have to kind of solve this is how can we replace rules using development updates? So, for example, Fear RP, could you replace it with some kind of reasonably complex system that guards against edge cases and limits pulling out a weapon? Things like that. That was unfortunately denied, so that became a dead end. Lots of discussions on just reducing rules. I've been very critical to the admin team that we have entirely too many rules. I don't administrate or play anymore, so I may be wrong, but I've never really played another roleplay game or another game in general, except for FL, which has such an absurd number of rules, in my opinion. So we're discussing how to cut these down. And obviously there's still, contention and arguments about this in the admin team. That spawned from this and something we are looking to implement is a second server, a kind of prototype test bed on what happens if we completely change, how we implement and enforce rules, where we want a maximum of 10 to 20 rules, most of which are only covering, the main things, no scamming, no cheating, no exploits, listen to admins, things like that, where the administration approach is much less based on, don't be a twat, don't do this again. Serious or non-serious RP at all, just basically anything goes. And one of the big ways we aim to fix this is if there's a problem or some kind of rule people bring up that needs to be in place or keeps on getting broken, can we add a fix to it via development and not adding a new rule? That will always be what we try and do. So again, 10 to 20 rules. Fear RP will not be one of the rules to start with, at the very least. So we're going to be adding death consequences to that server. If you die, you'll lose an amount of money. If you've got weapons drawn or something like that, you'll also lose amount of skills and greater amount of money. We want to make it harder to attain weapons. We want to go back to the days where, if you lost a top-end weapon in a raid, your whole clan lost them, that was really bad. So there's a lot more the details offhand, so we'll probably make a forum post on it as it nears completion. But to sum it down quickly, just new prototype server, massively reduced amount of rules, no VRP, no CDM, stuff like that, and we'll always try and use development to fix rule problems rather than adding new rules. As a prototype server, there won't be an inventory wipe. We'll be using the same database for this for now, mainly because we want to see which server people prefer. And we can't do that if one server people have all of their stuff and on the other server they have nothing. We need to actually track the stats and see which works best for people. Do they prefer the stricter approach where only serious RP really flies, or do they just prefer to be able to do anything and see what naturally develops? So yeah, again, it's from the community input group. We like the idea so much in the dev team that we're pushing a lot of resources towards it, and the input group are helping us to plan it. Once we have a rule set agreed on and in place, again, hopefully a small one, we'll be looking to implement some very basic dev consequences to start with, probably just money loss, and release a prototype server fairly soon. Probably mostly my category as well, unless anybody has any questions. The whole LimeLight idea, as we're calling it, is a fairly big one, so I'm going to grab a quick cup of tea. If you have any questions, just please put them in bold. I'll be back in 2-3 minutes, and I'll go through all of those. And again, please do put them in bold, or if someone like Bambo or somebody can please sort them out.
Just
So
put it
smart
in
about that.
question docs so we can keep track better, because it might get lost.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, I just think it's good to stay on topic and go through them now. So 2-3 minutes. Any more questions, have a think. I'll be happy to answer them as best as I can. And then after that, we'll continue on to the next topic.
In that case, while Frosty is gone, let us get through some of the other dev questions, which we can do while he's here. Updates to come on a more usual basis instead of once in a blue moon. I don't know if you've been looking at the change logs recently, but we've had quite a few updates coming in the past couple of weeks. So I don't know. But yeah, we're having updates put out. Always massive game changes, but they are updates nonetheless.
I mean, how often do you see a blue moon? Because we had a suit overhaul, a prop overhaul, and accessories in 1 month or so. So I don't think you see a blue moon that often. Yeah.
Interesting. When is /sit coming back? Looks like it broke when we changed something to fix vehicle seats. So it might come back, it might not, we don't know.
Didn't Tim think about that?
Maybe. I don't know who.
Let me quickly check.
Okay, I'm back. Are there any other questions in bold, or is that about it? I'll just check the document quickly.
So we were going through some of the dev questions while you were away, so if you want to hop back to Meska.
Yeah, sure. Doesn't sound...
Sorry, actually, yeah, there is a question. How are you going to make it a big deal, since I have a shitload of guns in my inventory and losing the most expensive weapon isn't a big deal?
Okay.
Okay.
Good meme there. Okay, so it depends really on the feedback we get and how it goes. The reason we want to minimal dev consequences at the start is we want to just see how it all works, how people naturally respond to, a reduced rule set. And also because we don't want to wipe everyone's inventory at the start. unless it's really extreme, I don't think it's a good idea to go for the route of wiping inventory for two reasons. One, people will be pissed off. And two, if the prototype server works really well, it's possible we could replace the main rule set with it and not just have two different server types. That would obviously be ideal because it means admins would all be on the same page. You wouldn't have to keep track of two different rule sets. Players wouldn't have to either. That's the best way. And reverting the entire inventory on that would be, huge pain for everybody involved. I think it's possible we'd even lose a lot of players over it. So in terms of doing that, that will actually tie into Meska, which I'll go into very shortly. We want harder to attain weapons, harder to keep weapons, more expensive to get the top end weapons. Various other things like tying into combat skills so you can be more effective with cheaper weapons. It might be that we take, top end weapons off the market, for example, or we might have other kind of death consequences like skill loss on death, or being locked out of a specific character for a certain amount of time, things like that. So losing weapons isn't the only thing you want to make difficult. Time to stockpile, except there's no guarantee we won't, limit amount of things in the inventory and refund that as money. If we do a database check and everyone's stockpiled hundreds and thousands of weapons because they think this is coming, then we'll probably just limit the amount to, a reasonable amount, a couple dozen maximum, and then refund the rest as cash by market value. So again, try not to be too dumb with it and game the system. We're trying to be fairly open here and honest and saying what our future plans are. If you're going to try and use that to circumvent death consequences and stuff, then you're probably going to end up being bit by it. But again, it's best to just wait and see. I'm not going to be the person making these decisions. I'm just really helping to implement them and guiding and leading the dev and business teams to doing so. It's going to chiefly be the community input group and admins that make these decisions, really. Well, maybe not admins, dev team, but not me, because I don't play it. Further to that, Meska modules. So, as several of you have commented already, or just one of you several times, I'm not sure which, the only thing we've had released for Meska so far has been fishing. And okay, fishing, we added a few new things. It's not done, I'll point that out. Right now, I believe we only have upgrades and things for levels 1 through 50, and therefore releasing the maximum level is not going to be very easy or achievable at all for most people. It's theoretically possible, but I don't expect to see anyone at level 100 this year, which I think is a good thing. It adds longevity to the game. Again, if I'm wrong, then please suggest reductions in the forums and we might make it easier to get higher. We do want to also add, again, new fishing things from level 50 to 100, and that'll make it easier to achieve the maximum level. Because the way it currently works is as you unlock a new type of fish to get, you gain more experience for that fish. There's a logarithmic speed boost that's in play when you level up, meaning that each time you level up, you fish slightly faster and have a better chance of catching double fish with double experience. But that does reduce in efficacy as you reach the highest levels. So we want to add new things from level 50 to 100 or even below to add onto there, possibly even new type of fishing, crab cages or something like that. And also membership fishing things as well. I know most people don't like when we release things that are only for members, but we need a budget to develop. We have to have some things that are membership locked. That's always been the case, that always will be the case, but we're still going to make sure that, the majority of every skill is available for all players. So on that note, skills you'll probably see fairly soon are going to be a medical skill. So this is first aid. Again, thanks to the community input group, I was looking at various other suggestions we can implement. One of the big ones was the FAS2 infantry medkit. So for those of you who aren't aware, that's a medkit where you actually have to use bandages, hemostats, and so forth to heal yourself or other players. And it takes a fair bit of time. It requires better inventory management and so forth. That's all our current medkit systems because they're very unrealistic, very simplified. And rather than just doing this on its own, we figured why not implement it and link it to the Meska module. What this effectively means is if you have, from the start, lots of players who are all level 1 medical skill, the only one who's going to be effective at healing other people is paramedics, because that's just their job type, so they're going to get a major buff to the medical skill. They're going to be able to revive people, they'll be able to heal people without failure most of the time, and if they do fail a heal, the player won't be hurt. Now, non-paramedics have to do it the tough way. They have to gain the medical experience. Now, you might be able to heal someone, but until you reach a certain level, you won't be able to revive that person. Likewise, you may be able to fail heals, and even badly fail heals, which should actually harm or kill a player who you're trying to revive. Because of this, there's going to be experience boosts in play. If you play as a paramedic, you'll earn about 5 times the experience. So, if you don't want to start immediately as a level 1 medic in the field, you can play as a paramedic for a few hours, get some really good experience there, get level 10 medical or something, and then you might actually be effective in a raid. And the long-term idea of this is, 1, make healing duration in raids, you actually have to take your time, and 2, people who train skills are going to become more valuable, as it should be. With fishing, it doesn't really matter because food's so easy to attain anyway. There's not a huge benefit from it. But with to start to see a benefit, crafting and contraband will certainly have this. But if one clan has a couple of medics who are, level 50, 60 and can revive very quickly, they can get double or 3 times the amount of heal for the same stuff, they can apply steroid effects improvements. That's a huge benefit. Great question on, don't you think that could be abused? I'm sure you're talking about the whole paramedic experience boost. Yeah, but at the same time, it's just grinding, but taking a more efficient route. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Everything's always going to be abused. I that there will be some people who are continuously just going to injure themselves and, heal, injure, heal, injure, heal. And yeah, the solutions to this, like, you could max it after a while. So if you're constantly healing the same player, that'll stop. Otherwise, I honestly don't care too much so long as you make it part of like a medical training roleplay or something like that. Using this chiefly on the new LimeLight server as well with the reduced rule set. It means players are going to be able to do different things. They're not going to have to follow super strict rules. You're free to experiment with how the experience system works, basically, so long as you're not blatantly finding bugs and exploits in the code. I think that's actually one of the better ways to have a game being run, not being afraid of consequences, but new metas developing around how you train, how you incorporate medics into play, things like that. And again, is it really abuse, Eddie? If you're blatantly exploiting code so you're getting rapid heals, then yes, it might be. If you're just doing a medical training school, or even in real life, there's been instances where medics have been trained on purposefully injured prisoners and so forth. That's happened. If someone decides to roleplay that, it's technically not unrealistic. Again, we want to be careful what we class as abuse, because on the new LimeLight server, it's meant to be more free implementation. And we always want to try and fix a problem with a development update, which is why we'll probably just go with Gun Granny's suggestion of max it after a certain while. Gear will actually be more expensive. So the way this works is a new medkit has, I think, bandages, quick clots, and hebo stats, and they heal a different amount. It's now significantly more expensive to heal and revive someone. I'll say that now. It's a lot more expensive than before, because we looked at how much money went into it. To get it all for free, that's a huge help. But there are going to be limitations there too. Medical healing item cannot actually be bought from the market. It requires crafting to get, and so forth. Medic job / SWAT medic job that gets boosted stats. Potentially, haven't really thought about this one. Literally on their side anyway. Combat medics, lots of really cool suggestion. We could look. Going to be problems with this release, there always are. But I think it's better to have, a nice new system in play and, people develop a meta around the edge cases of it, rather than just not bothering to release it because there's going to be problems. We have to release something. Other various things. Crafting is in progress. We've actually spent a fair bit of money in the past on really nice models for mining, smelting. We need a workbench still. Have been completed. Needs to be a fair bit of planning done in how things are done. I need to wake up and do a bit more work. I haven't had much time to get it done really, so that might still be a while, unfortunately. But I would love to get it released before I start my masters. Contraband. So we have plans for a contraband skill tree. Mining is part of crafting, but will be separate. We have plans for cooking skill tree. We have plans for weapons handling, faster reload, more stability, less recoil, things like that. We can integrate once we get to this stage. So crafting and medical, for example, if you want to craft hemostats, you'd need both medical and crafting experience, and doing that would give you both. Same would actually apply for fishing. We could have it so you need to craft new fishing cages or more advanced rods, and actually crafting would also get you a decent chunk of fishing experience too. So this is going to be another reason, we add, say, reasons to link up different skills, work on different skills, and don't just try to immediately max everything out. Does that mean if a chef burns and dies, they lose cooking skill if it gets added? I'd say unlikely, because it's, it's a passive skill generally.
Oh, but what about if their shop gets molotoved? And they burn and die, I think is what he's getting at.
Blame the Givens.
Yeah, that's again it's not a big skills consideration. The way I kind of see it, but this will depend on what the input group says and what suggestions we get. The only skill loss on death is going to really be combat skills, or at least a minor amount of passive skills.
System them.
You're literally already getting a bonus, and you don't even have to obey things like fear RP anymore. If you could be in a case where you have a very high combat RP, combat skill, allowing you to rapidly draw and aim a weapon and ignore fear RP. That's not going to be enough. I'll be honest, I think you're misunderstanding the situation here. Okay, good question. How far are you planning on doing things like that? Very far. We want to kind of release the base modules for each thing first and then improve them over time. One big problem we've had in the past with updates is the scope just gets way too complicated from the start, and we couldn't do anything. The Mesca library that Burnett wrote helps quite a lot with this, because it's now a lot simpler to add and hook into skills, but we still need to be really careful with how much we add. But for different weapon types would make sense, especially as we're interested in different character classes and stuff. If you could specialize in sniper rifles or pistols, that could be really cool.
Upon mining and cooking yet?
Really briefly on, yeah. It's just going to be part of crafting. A main reason for mining is to replace the whole, I don't even know if we still have it, to be honest, but the idiotic system of getting metal from car crashes and stuff. That was stupid. And, okay, it started off as being way too high in scope. Like lots of different metals, you'd have to smelt alloys. It was too confusing. So now it's just going to be a few metals and coal and various mysterious or something. Mainly because trying to make everything too realistic means you get caught into a trap of trying to make every damn crafting thing realistic. It doesn't work. But yeah, mining will support smelting, will support crafting of metal goods. Woodworking will tie into crafting. So yeah, woodcutting will get the Mesca approach as well. So woodcutting will change based on Mesca. I think I touched on really briefly. Into fishing, probably also into medical. There could be bursts through there. So there's a few cool things we can think of there.
You can actually improve upon chop shops, like gathering scrap metal from a car kinda, in a way.
I mean, that could be really cool. My only worry with that is we'd have to kind of rewrite how cars are stored, because do you want permanent damage on them, or do you just want people to be able to steal them? I'm not sure.
That would be a rewrite of the entire inventory system.
Scope, unfortunately. It would be cool if we gave shops some more refined purpose, but I mean, people already roleplay them without needing to have them, so if it's roleplay for roleplay, that's cool too. Chat clearly like the idea, so it's...
Ready, but don't quote me on that.
We could implement it to a small degree, like there's no permanent damage to the car, it's just steal car, you could do it. Other questions? No.
Updates not focused on Mesca, such as content vehicles, player models, or are they all going to be Mesca? I can answer that. Yeah, there's going to be updates that aren't focused on Mesca. Because
Yeah. I mean, you've already had updates that aren't Mesca after Mesca was released to see accessories and suits, stuff like that.
To be fair, there's always ways of tying it in, whether it be making accessories that are craftable in the future or some other way. Are they going to be Mesca updates?
Like a chain, everything uniform. So that would be the perfect thing, I think.
Development strategy. We don't just want a million different shallow updates that barely touch. We want, you know, a smaller number of systems, but they're, you know, they've got depth to them, they're linked, they're refined. I just think, you know, I might not that much anymore, but I do play a lot of games, and my opinion is it's a much better way to make a game. You know, tighter scope, but everything has depth to it.
Until recording ends, so we should kind of...
Mesca for gov jobs since... how realistic of Mesca for government jobs, and since we're in a public meeting, who would actually like that? Such as having level requirements for PD gear. Not good for the second, but for the first part, how realistic would it be?
Yeah, it's not difficult. You know, it's 2 plugins really to do that. I will say now there's being worked on, you know, better government-approved systems, which Bambo's doing an absolutely excellent job on. So there could be some tie-in there in the future, potentially. And again, it's something that we probably won't do initially on release for the medical skill, but, you know, paramedics, you know, their government job, they are probably the key job for one of the main skills. So yeah, there will be some tie-in there. Perhaps as a paramedic with a higher medical skill, you could get improved medkits or better things given. There's a fair few possibilities there.
I think that's everything from Mesca. Okay, let's try and keep this quick. So explain. Okay, technical debt. Technical debt is, to keep it brief, essentially it work and don't think about making it future-proof. And this has happened a lot on both FL and it's happened a lot on LimeLight with a lot of the code that we've got. For example, for making items sort correctly in the market, by the actual name of the item, not its item ID. So if you had the same name, it might pick the wrong one, which happened a couple of days ago when .45 ACP ammo disappeared from the market. Things like that, where you make one small change, and because of the back-end systems that weren't written with the thought, everything just failed and dropped off. So it's taking a lot of work to fix that. It's taking a lot of work. Things like the inventory system and the item system, which are quite nice systems, but again, they don't have that future-proof support. So again, updating item formats. I managed to get Nightmare to rewrite some item files, and he's a complete idiot. So you see what it's like written to make it easier for people to work with. Plus the truck we have now. But yeah, Sales did some as well. They are faster. They're easy, less error prone, and for things where stuff is the same, like accessories, if you've got 5 different hats, half the stuff is going to be the same. So one of the things we've got is item bases. So you can have everything that's the same is one thing, and you just have the things that change. The thing we've got is we're migrating all of our web services over to Git, so that we have things like staging environments, and it's making it a lot easier to roll back changes that break. Membership page with a couple of fixes on there. Just off the top of my head, things like the content page were completely written. Git. Next up is documentation. What functions do and finding them. Some of our contributors use. I don't know if even still here. Cole, do you use the docs? I don't think. No, it doesn't matter. We have them, and some people apparently use them. Standards, so like the LimeLight standards document number 1, which you might have seen in help and support. So all our code is easy to read, it's standard and it's uniform. Formatting and linting, same thing, making sure stuff is easy to read. Things like cleaning up old items, which saves space in the database because you don't have to store them. You can get rid of the old item files, which makes stuff smaller. It saves time processing them when we're loading the game. The things that we have been doing, we've either been updating them to new items, so things like the old government hat and police cap have been updated to the new ones, and some of them funded. Like the old Dodge Monaco was refunded, the old packaging stuff was refunded. Making some systems in the future for getting rid of the old trading cards. We're not decided yet. It could be if you guys know Civ 5, like the world events thing on Civ 5, where you put in a certain amount of stuff and rewards back, or it might be just refunding people a straight amount of money, or they might just be deleted. Just generally, this paying back of all of this debt that we've accrued really ties into all the bug fixing that we have to do as well, because sometimes tiny changes, like making 2 items with the same name, just completely break things. Funding. Name's the same as something else, or if they're overwritten, like with ago. It's there. Fixes for accessories. People have actually a huge amount of work. Hundreds of models and hundreds of accessories as well, making thousands and thousands of combinations. And the fact that it's come out as bug-free as it has is surprising to me. And honestly, the people who've worked on it have done a really, really good job. Mefty this morning. So yeah, that got overwritten by something else. Either for some reason. That was fixed, but that's fine. Context menu, remover and color tools. Because the same hook was in 2 different files, when it was changed in one, the one that was being overwritten wasn't being overwritten, so it started to work again and was breaking stuff, which is very interesting that I hadn't seen before. Next up, optimization. So just recently, things like the chat box, making things quicker and easier, and hopefully giving people more FPS. Able or that's is unlikely to happen because of the limitations that we have. Things like rebooting the running server to a different map, making sure the panels will work properly, likely to happen. Into it, it was very, very small. I think Frosty can attest it was about one model maybe, 1.5 models per month if we were to outsource them.
It's quite small. If you compare it to EU server, how much we would pay for an outsourced model, it's fairly minor.
Yeah. So with the people on the thread saying it saved LimeLight's development, no, it hasn't, not really. Part and be used as it needs to be used. Falsey spoke about that earlier. May already talked about that. Will everything be as grindy as fishing? Some progression. So just grinding and about 50 levels in 2 days. You know, forward on WoW Classic.
Sorry, and as you have new skills as well, like crafting medical, there's going to be overlap between them. So if you're sick of playing a medic, you could always go craft medical skills and gain skill that way too. Medical items.
The skills are looking at full revamp. So fishing was quite small; it wasn't really changed hugely, but other skills were revamping them from the ground up. Certain feels going to cost a lot of money. They could do, but another aim of Mascot is to try and make things less dependent on money, but being more dependent on the skills that people have and their character set up for a certain situation.
Yeah, and an example of that could be, the highest level weaponry or new weapons we add. If we take those off the market, it no longer really depends on how much money you have. You can't just stockpile a giant pile of them. You need to be part of a clan or have friends who have, or yourself take a lot of time to build up the skills to craft these things. And, the very best things are going to require skills from, a lot of different skills. Crafting, mining, woodcutting could be an example of 3 skills you'd need very high levels in to create, really good weapons, and combat skill as well. If we ever add new, medical items that could actually give you health buffs or things like that, you would need really high levels for that. And the goal there. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Sorry for cutting in, but because of the level for say, let's need like 60 or 100 or 200 hours just to create an AWM. Take some time for people to make it. Do you think that it would be feasible to have like a black market guy, an NPC randomly in a week just appear and just sell the items that are high end? Everyone
Definitely feasible, and I think if people think it's a good idea, it could be good. One game completely different that does a similar thing causes Stardew Valley. Once every week, I think, or something, they have a cart come over that sells items you can't otherwise get at that time for a higher price. So it is feasible. We could have a black market guy come over, sell a limited amount of stuff to each person for a huge markup. But that could be a way of getting things without crafting.
Issue of everyone flooding their inventories with a particular item in order to try and level up to get a new item going to be sorted. With new skills, that's less likely to happen because there's a wider range of stuff to do. How they want. If they want to grind out for hours and get a particular item, it's their choice at the end of the day. If they do that, that's their prerogative. If they want to do it for 10 minutes a week and barely get one item but get it over a long time, that's also their choice.
I think it's also
Lag, Bambo, lag.
Back. Am I back? No.
Turkish, what they fucking hell.
What I was asking is, it also would tie into the LimeLight thing, because I think we were talking about it when inventory was going to be limited in a way, so people don't stockpile. Get that wrong.
About that, and I don't think that was something that got.
Granny mentioned like limited pockets or something.
See, it was removed because it was so easy to bypass that there really was no point in bypass it. So,
Like, say, if a person's stockpiling on fish and he reaches max limit, it would make him sell that fish to open up more space.
I feel like there should be a really hard and really small limit on inventory, so people have to choose what they want to keep in their inventory, minus cosmetics and vehicles. So if you can't keep 1,000 different guns in your inventory, you can.
dude.
Oh.
Yeah.
Already wrote it down somewhere.
What's going to happen to inventories afterwards? Or a degradation? A wipe, as we said.
I mean, after lots of Mesca things have been added.
A wipe, as we said before, degradation requires massive changes to our inventory system, which won't happen straight away. And a couple of suggestions already, like the one about books. How do future cash sinks tie into Mesca? The question, because they're not related. Yeah, Mesca to make skills and cash independent, whereas cash sinks are something.
Well, that's pretty much what I was going to say. So again, cash sinks would probably tackle in other ways. Far more expensive vehicles and maintenance, for example, requiring plans to build vehicle fleets rather than just individual players owning every damn supercar, stuff like that. And again, I think just less availability for the best weapons due to crafting is going to mean that a market's going to form and people might be spending a ton more money to attain these weapons, which will be interesting. We'll see what happens. We don't want to regulate it too much. That's part of the point of LimeLight as well. It should be to develops.
I feel offended. Just because I own every supercar apart from your 12 Lambos.
Don't evaluate my Lambo.
Vehicles aren't content. Might add vehicles in the future, but it's nowhere near a priority for anything we're doing. Seemingly public inactivity of The Rock. Firstly, if I'm probably going to regret saying anything if I take this, so you feel free to have that question.
With The Rock, he's a family man. He's fairly busy. Thing happen reasonably soon if he's not more active, but this is an issue between me and him. I can't go into details on his private life here. That wouldn't be fair. What I will say is that there are several other people who are also, active, inactive. It's not a limited team. If we have an inactive developer, it doesn't mean a developer can't join. The only major problem is public optics, which is a problem for the team, not players, because it impacts negatively on the team and not the players. Kind of people, I don't know. Again, it doesn't restrict anyone else from joining the development team. More activity from him, but it's not something I can control like that.
Is there a possibility of Rockford?
See, whatever. Maps go as maps go, and people change their mind every 20 seconds.
Overload, are you here still?
About the inactivity of staff members, this has been a problem for over 2.5 years. Call us back next month when Nightmares got up to speed.
I think this was also touched upon, so I'll just mark this as done. Overload, next question.
Consider bias a problem in the team still. HR, consider bias a problem in the team still.
Shut the fuck up. Bias is not something that it's something that will always be present to an extent. From what I've seen lately, no, not something that is a immediate massive concern. Basically.
If players say, "Oh, I swear we've done this one already," we have done that one already. What are we doing about the broken economy with the recent card situation and money and vehicles being given out? The money that came in by people buying card packs went out for more rewards.
7 mil just buying 2 foils.
The item-based changes to the change logs. It clutters the change logs up with useless information. They are change logs. They are logs of changes. If you don't,
Yeah, they're pretty necessary. Like even if not for players, like contributors seeing that, they kind of know what's been changed. And I like to look at them, know what's been changed. A lot easier than going and looking at internal logs as well. And also, if we don't add stuff there, people then start bitching, saying, "Hey, you're not doing anything. What the fuck? We donated."
Earlier about why we weren't releasing any updates.
It also provides a ground. It also provides a ground for internet to flex. So
definitely.
Site,
minutes ago.
Possibility for us to monitor the progress of our suggestions.
Not hugely, because of the way it goes. We don't generally know what suggestions. All right, catch it later, Apollo. We don't generally know what suggestions are being added until a project's already been approved and it's been done. Some suggestions are so small that it already be done. So
sometimes, like some suggestions link in others, and that's weird.
See suggestions and then see them later when we're moving other suggestions.
Yeah.
So it's not, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, big things will go on the roadmap generally if they're huge ones, and you can track them like that. But otherwise, it's honestly for small suggestions. If we add tracking for it, we're just doubling the time it takes to implement anything. It's a waste of time for some things, unfortunately.
Well, there are any plans to add depth to the government side of RP? It's very two-dimensional at the moment. Yes, there are, and we've already done quite a bit with things like investigations and government vehicles improvements, and a lot of things we've tried to improve, but there is still more work to do.
Hopefully soon.
Coming is the emphasis word because it makes me come.
For the fire department, because in terms of RP, it's the same thing over and over. Is there going to be hoses or ladders added in the future?
Is something that I really want. Working group for fire department improvements with Sir Wolf back when he was a staff member, but unfortunately we never had a developer or chance to put them on that. Maybe
Definitely say hoses is something I'd love to see put in as well. It's definitely worth spending money and time on.
Is there any chance of Evo Radio coming back?
probably not in an official capacity, maybe. Was about whitelist the police force, maybe. We don't know. It's not a concept I myself am averse to personally, but it would need to be carefully managed. Is it possible to have a set of developers on suggestions for short term and another set for long term? Which developers?
You.
No, which developers? Because Tamar, Burnett, of which Tamar, Burnett, and Falsely mostly do a lot of security backend work. We've got you, but you do HTML. We've got Goigor, who's been really busy with something I can't remember what he's saying. Busy with, and we've got Rock, who does models. Developers.
question I don't understand mainly, but
4 to 5 who are all busy with their own things. The only people who are constantly busy is me, really. Falsely some of the time. We're not Bethesda.
Again, this is the key problem. Everyone here is, we get some amount of pay, but it's all volunteering. Back in the day, we were all kids doing this. We had a lot more free time on it, but because we were kids and inexperienced, we were, a lot less effective. Didn't know as much. Now, most of us are fairly experienced developers, at least at a hobbyist level, and we can help. But that also means we have, uni, work, businesses to manage. Some of us both, families. It is very much, a side project for all of us. You can't expect a gigantic amount of, work being done all the time. That's just reality.
Developers. Education full time. To say LimeLight is a side project for all of us. Paid 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year, 40 grand a year, and I could work full time on it, that'd be wonderful, but it doesn't and it won't.
let's just sell LimeLight to Elon Musk and solve it all.
We just sell LimeLight to Puggy.
I think we don't have much time left before the stream ends, so
let's try and keep this quick, yes. Tomorrow seems to be inactive, online now and again, a few minor updates, so what's the story there? Because if I were to give some feedback here, I don't think tomorrow is much of an owner. Unfortunately, I can understand life takes priority, but tomorrow hasn't been on for a number of weeks. Tomorrow was on last week.
Tamar also does loads of backend and also works on other stuff.
He does a lot of business work.
Behind the scenes still.
Do work.
Say as well that, just because you're owner or, SA or dev or whatever, we don't have to constantly be flexing and showing off our work. In fact, that's wasting time on not working most of the time. So if someone's not publicly visible a lot of the time, I don't consider that to be a major concern. That's what media is for. That's their job. Everyone else, they have different jobs, and being publicly active is not always one of them.
And staff access to players' XP state. We can refund items and money, though we may need to refund XP if progress is lost due to a rule violation or a bug. That's something you should bring up internally, not here. Will the stock exchange ever come back, as it was removed due to bugs? No, it was removed because it was never ready for release in the first place. What do we think of daily bonuses? Each day you get a random reward out of preset options, and they stack up each day. That's a nice idea. Unfortunately,
we actually have Meska support for daily bonuses. Burnett created a system which staff can use to add a daily bonus whenever. Staff just have to use it, really. It's there, it works.
But sorry, obviously wrong type of daily bonus. Think mobile app where you log in every day and you get a better bonus each day.
As well. Okay, well, yeah, that's a possibility that could link in nicely. Not a bad idea.
Basically, every day you log in, you claim a day, and then it kind of racks up, and you get more rewards.
Snap streaks, like the kids. Yeah.
Streak, yeah, kind of. Get a SA position in 7 days. That's really nice.
I got it.
It's more than I've played, yeah.
That's wrap up all the questions. Unless you guys have more.
On that note, that's a good point. Really, it depends on how bad the issue is. If everyone's just logging in then immediately leaving, okay, yeah. Chances are, once people have gone through the effort of logging in, they might want to stay a bit. They might at least check out if there's any UP or fun raids going on. There's who just log in, immediately log out. I don't see it being a huge issue. Again, we don't want to penalize those who literally can't, play every day. Of course, we want to, reward those who can, but if people just want to, at least think of LimeLight, if they're doing this, at least it means they're active and want to stick around. It's not the biggest issue. And I don't think opening with a big time is a good idea.
That's everything.
15 minutes left, I think. If anyone has any other questions to ask, now is the time. If not, we could either wrap up, or Bambo, I'd be happy if you'd want to, talk a little bit about the government changes you've been working on, because that's really cool stuff that people might want to hear.
He wants to talk about that until it's more ready.
Ready, but I just like the part of it, like we had limited time, so I thought we could just talk about it later.
Sure, then go ahead and talk about it. Fine.
Basically, what more in the government for the president. Let's say you'd have a panel where you'd set budgets, and then you'd kind of use that budget on certain aspects of the government care. And the panel, so I can go over it. The budget thing is that goes. You can also, the president should also be able to pocket the money if you want to be really corrupt. President, you'd be able to do that, and you'd kind of mess up your government in that sense. This panel also kind of takes everything president related, like laws, etc. And I'd also bring a new tax system that comes with it. Basically, that.
Yeah, so I'll just wait for questions there. So a good one, or a good point from Jeff Ford, thinking we should be careful that Meska changes. Both read it? You really?
Or rather grindy and inhibit RP.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great point. We don't want to turn into just a game. But again, it's optional what people do. Part of the point of Meska skills will link up, so you'll be able to gain skills by using other skills that are related. There is of course, exponential experience curve, so it's harder to gain levels as you go up, but what sensible. We are always open to feedback. If it takes, even if once we've got all the skills and it takes way too long to do and everyone's just focusing on skills, then obviously we can change it up somewhat. It's a fairly flexible system to change.
Forced down the road.
There's no problem with us linking various things in, even if it's not necessarily a whole new skill set. There might not be a skill just for the president, but there might be metrics that are being tracked that have impact. So how much money you've pocketed by being corrupt in the president job, for example. If we track that metric and your character's always someone who pockets some money, by the time you've been playing for a few weeks, always doing that, death consequences might massively spike, or your government might get access to certain legal things, like less use of non-lethal weaponry, and you might not be able to afford good weapons, but there might be unlocked, knives and various things and other things that you normally wouldn't be using. In the opposite, if your character's tracked always being, quite a benevolent president, or at least very good with money, always pumping things into police equipment, after a few weeks of playing, your police equipment might really open up. So, you could play balanced, half-time dictator, half benevolent president. But if you really choose one path, that might actually have an impact on what unlocks are available. And this won't be a skill set. It'll probably just be a few metrics being tracked that impact what equipment you can set as being available on the panel.
If the guy just decides to change up his playstyle, though, like what if he wants to be a
Well, for one, it's metrics, so yeah, that is a fair point. I think we need to be careful in how we do it, so it should be tied to kind of what you're doing at the moment as well. So if you've been playing a dictator and then you decide to actually play a good president for once the system recognizes where the sliders have been set, it shouldn't be applying the negative effects. So there are things we can do to counteract that. Ideas have been floated around in the community input group for an actual character system as well. I'll expand really quickly on the idea that you'd have several different characters with different skill sets and different ends. This is a long-term idea. We need to have Mesca up and rolling first. We need to do various database rewrites. But it's a possibility if anyone's actually interested in it.
So I'd like to thank everyone who took the time out of their day to turn up, and for being our HR representative who didn't say anything. Thank you, Felsti, for all the input you've given us. Thank you, Bambo, for all the input that you've everyone who stayed until the end. Sin, thank you, and I hope everyone has a good morning, evening, night, whatever time it is in your country. Nobody leaves. Wonderful. All right.
Right up until that point.
You didn't sound intimidating enough. And to server mute, so I'm kind of
Voice permissions when they joined. If you change the channel after they join, it's not like TS where it kicks them all out.
I mean, once this is properly finished, we could try a new format. As in, once this is done, we'll stop recording. It might be worth discussing a clusterfuck.
Yeah, but
moving a bit too fast.
Everybody was talking about all sorts of shit in the channel. Oh, hang on. Edit channel.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's not too bad, but you know, if we're actually successful in getting a higher player count, chances are we'll have larger meetings. Chances are we need a better way of dealing with this.
you'll have to unmute you manually, I think, or you can just join. Yeah, just rejoin.